Elden Ring truly feels like a once-in-a-generation type of game. It's a culmination of every previous From Software game that came before it. And with people starting to get burnt out on open world games, Elden Ring comes along and gives us a refreshing take on the genre. With 3 years of hype, expectation was high before the game was released. And From Software was able to not only meet those high expectations, but in some ways exceed it. And that shouldn't be understated. Because when you think about the last game to have a mountain of hype from a well-respected studio, only to crash and burn on launch, it's really impressive when you think about what they've accomplished. Dark Souls fans love the game, and it got a wave of people who have never touched Dark Souls game, like me, to play it, who discovered the joy of getting repeatedly pegged by a knight, shoving their spear in places I did not know could be reached, again and again and again, only to finally overcome the challenge, taste that satisfaction of beating a difficult boss, only to then find out that the actual boss was in the next room and you have to go through the motions all over again. I truly love this game. Having spent years stuck in live service games with battle passes, microtransactions and FOMO everywhere, it feels great to have a complete game that's worth the price it's selling for. Let's be honest, the Game Awards don't really matter to us. You don't recommend your mates to play a game because it won Game of the Year. After all, you've probably already forgotten who won it last year. The only time people care about a game winning a reward is so they can flame another fanbase on Twitter or Reddit. So while I don't personally care about the Game Awards, I think this is a great chance to dig deeper and wax lyrical about Elden Ring. See, one of Elden Ring's strongest aspects is what it doesn't do. Compare it to any Ubisoft open world game like Assassin's Creed. In Assassin's Creed, the game will tell you from the first mission to the last what you need to do, where you have to go, and it will point out every task you can do in the area, cluttering up the map with as much busy work as it can squeeze in. A Ubisoft game will effectively do the work for you, requiring you to do very little outside the missions it gives you. Head to this point, also travel on horse or boat, kill the target, start the next mission, rinse, repeat. One of the best features of open world games is seeing something interesting in the distance, going there to find out what it is, whether it's a boss or a fortress or something, and through exploration, you find out about the world, the characters living in it, and why you, the player, is important for the story as a whole. A well-crafted game can let its environment explain the world better and with more impact than an NPC with a wall of text. Going back to Assassin's Creed for a second, it gives you so much busy work, so many tasks on your map, that the focus stops being about exploration and just completing tasks of a checklist. You forget about the world around you. It all blurs together, so there's nothing memorable outside of moments when the game sits you down to watch a cutscene. Making sure that everyone who plays the game has the exact same experience and you don't miss anything. Only after playing games that don't use this formula have I realized that games like Assassin's Creed and Horizon, among others, create this habit that robs you of agency. Don't think about what you're doing, just keep ticking off easy tasks for that mild dopamine hit, because if you don't, you might see how formulaic and stretched out this game truly is. Elden Ring doesn't do this. It gives you a vague direction at the start, and that's really it. You know you need to reach that golden tree, but how you do it is completely dependent on you. At first, I didn't know what to do. I was so used to constantly being told what I had to do and where I had to go with a very clear direction that after beating the first boss in Elden Ring, I didn't know what to do next. I thought this was a drawback at first, but after exploring more of the world and getting cut and stabbed and pecked, skewed, bitten and shot, I finally saw the truth. The strongest aspect of an open world game is exploration, and a great open world knows that letting you decide where to go based on what you want to do creates a better, more memorable game. The best moments in any game that you remember come from decisions that you made, rather than a developer orchestrating it for you. It's attacking an NPC because you thought they were an enemy, or you open a chest that sends you to the other side of the world, or checking out a building and finding out that it's a lift that takes you to an underground city. It's these moments that you will share with your mates, and through their stories, you find out more secrets hidden away in the world. We all reacted the same way when Radahn fell from the sky, but the journey we took to get to that boss was unique to each player. Elden Ring doesn't mind if you miss a dungeon or a boss. You can pretty much go anywhere you like, and From Software knows you're going to have a good time. And to me, that's a sign of a developer that knows they've made a really good game. Now, I haven't really played a From Software game before Elden Ring, but for as long as I can remember, every game that got released, the same controversies appear. Dark Souls fans will complain that the way you play the game is too easy and that you should make it harder for yourself. And Kotaku will copy paste an article asking why Dark Souls games don't have difficulty settings. Now, this is just an opinion, but to me, not only does Elden Ring have a difficulty setting, it has the best difficulty system of any game. Because rather than choosing a game's difficulty through settings, the difficulty is instead related to how you play the game. I'll explain. The way I would describe it, traditional difficulty settings are mechanical. You go into the menu settings, decide the difficulty based on personal choice, which will impact the whole game. Whereas Elden Ring's difficulty is dynamic. Instead of having a symbol or a big number next to a name of a boss or area to tell you if it's strong enough to beat it, Elden Ring does it differently by giving you no information at all. This way, difficulty is entirely down to the individual. Everyone's difficulty will be different based on personal skill, their character level, their build setup, their weapon. So when you go into a dungeon or face a big boss, you decide if you're strong enough based on feel alone. Everyone who plays Elden Ring goes through the same emotions. They see a big guy, they poke at it, see how much damage they do, and after a few goes, they see if that boss feels beatable. And if you beat it, you feel that sense of pride and accomplishment. If you feel like you can't beat that boss, you either go away to fight something else or level up, or you change your gear and go again. Think of difficulty in Elden Ring on a spectrum relative to the individual player. On the one end, you have too easy, where you don't even have to try or think about it, you can just kill the enemy in front of you. You would have to intentionally die to fail. And on the other side, you have impossible. No matter what you do, you can't beat this boss, either because of skills or items or both. So you go up against a few mobs and difficulty feels about here, round about easy. While going up against Melania with no parts or armor or weapons will feel like this. But if you use Moonveil when the game launched, it will feel like this. You might not realize it, but playing Elden Ring, you're adjusting your difficulty all the time. Before a boss room, you might use your favorite weapon, realize it's impossible to beat, so you start to use summons, and with every death and failure, you're making the boss fight easier. You're changing your strategy, changing your loadout, learning the moveset, and if you still can't beat that boss, you can go somewhere else. The first Tree Sentinel is a perfect example of this. Explore more of the open world, level up, get new weapons, and fight them later on. Sure, you can make yourself overpowered and overleveled, but you have to earn it through playing the game. To me, the sweet spot of difficulty in Elden Ring is right here. It wants you to memorize its attacks, its movements. It wants you to learn through failure going again and again until you finally kill the boss. And to me, no other game I've played gives you that same feeling. In an open world game that fully embraces exploration, with game design that rewards the player from said exploration, it only makes sense that Elden Ring's story is told the same way. There has been discussions around the game, critiquing a narrative or lack of one, and as someone who's new to the franchise, I can understand where they're coming from. If you're used to narratives from games like Horizon and Assassin's Creed that hold your hand through every story beat, you might find Elden Ring's story a bit empty. Yes, there are cutscenes and character dialogue, but it's bare bones at best. So when you're used to the main character constantly repeating their motivations, and with NPCs telling you how you are the hero that can save the world, it makes their criticisms of Elden Ring understandable. I mean, I still think they're wrong, but it's understandable. I think of Elden Ring's story like a jigsaw puzzle that's scattered around the game for you to find and piece together. Like the world and gameplay, it's down to you in what you take from it. Again, giving the player full agency in how they interpret the story, and if you're not prepared for that going in, then you might be left disappointed. You are not the chosen one. No one in the world cares about you, and you have no personal connection to any character in the game. Hell, the first NPC you talk to just straight up insults you. Now, seasoned Dark Souls players know this going in, so they paid close attention to what NPCs were saying, because they knew that's the only time the character is going to talk about something that's important to the player. They know to check item descriptions and pay close attention to the environment around them, whereas a new player like me had to learn this through friends and gameplay tips I saw online. Even so, it still takes multiple playthroughs and a couple of YouTube videos on top of that to fully understand the world. So while I personally enjoyed finding the jigsaw pieces and putting it all together to understand the story, it's definitely not for everyone. I would recommend everyone to try Elden Ring for the gameplay, but telling someone they need to play the game 2 to 3 times to understand what happened is a tough sell if you're looking for a compelling story above all else. To me, whatever awards Elden Ring wins is deserved in my eyes. Unless it wins best community somehow, because holy crap, are Dark Souls fans toxic as fuck. Regardless of what happens at the Game Awards, Elden Ring will always be a game looked back upon as one of the greatest games of all time. So this was the first video I've ever made. Hopefully you got something out of it, even if it was just a way to distract yourself for 10-20 minutes. I've got no runes, I've got no maidens, and I've got no subscribers, and you could potentially help me with one of those things at least. So if you don't know, you need to reach 1,000 subscribers to get that sweet ad revenue. So if you could please do me the favor of like and subscribe and all that bollocks, and share this video with friends, because any views I get is going to help me massively, and I would greatly appreciate it. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.